Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. We're so excited to be here with you guys today, talking about making space for creative voices in AI. I'm Carly Ehrlich, Senior Business Development Lead at Wurl. For those that are unfamiliar with Wurl, we are a CTV platform within the ad tech space, and we allow brand marketers to target CTV content at the scene level based on emotion. And I'm here with Iain. So we'd love to get some introductions from you, learn a little bit more about yourself. Sounds fun, and really your journey to AI.
Thank you very much, Carly. I apologize on behalf of Lex, my partner at Lenovo, who couldn't be here. She has the flu, unfortunately. So I will be soloing this with Carly as...
You're doing amazing so far, as am I.
It's been 10 seconds, so let's see how it goes. So I'm Iain. I'm the co-founder, the chief vision officer of a creative innovation studio called Sounds Fun. I have always been fascinated by technology and culture and how technology and culture interact with each other, how one drives the other. When I was 14 years old, my brother was arrested by Interpol for hacking into Belgium's telephone network. And so I grew up in this crazy hacker house in the 90s. And I am not very technically minded, despite the kind of work that I do, but I've always been fascinated by technology and its ability to connect us. I grew up in South Africa. That's where the accent is from, and being able to just talk to other people on the internet was something that was so profound and meaningful, and being able to just connect and talk to people all over the world is something that's informed my art and my work my entire life. Obviously, for every child alive today, the internet is this ubiquitous thing that's meaningless. But there was a brief moment in time when it was magical and just incredible. I also happen to be a best-selling poet. You can find my poetry in Target, which is a very bizarre place to find poetry. And so I've always had this fascination with language, with technology, how they feed into each other in different ways. A few years ago, I started working with a bunch of startups, all of which were using something that was called GPT-3. At that point in time, it was my first exposure to a large language model. As someone who worked with writing quite a lot, I'd always had a suspicion that a bunch of it could be automated, that there were patterns to what I was doing, that there were interesting things that something like machine learning could look at and kind of tweak and change. And so a lot of the startups I was working with were looking at how can you automate a Facebook ad, or how can you automate a Google ad? And I said, how can I use this to make just insane art? How can I use this just to do weird and wonderful and crazy things that have never been done before? And so I wrote a book about those experiments called What Makes Us Human, which came out about 2 months before ChatGPT, so it was pretty well timed. And I ended up getting pulled into Vice Media. I was their global head of innovation. I worked with Coca-Cola on a lot of their first experiments with artificial intelligence. And about 2 years ago, I left to start a creative innovation studio called Sounds Fun, where we focus on AI and try to figure out what are the implications culturally, creatively for this technology. And we kind of position ourselves as half Thomas Edison's lab and half Andy Warhol's art factory. And one of the incredible folks we've had the incredible pleasure of working with is the team at Lenovo.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for that. I think that really shapes what we're going to be talking about today, so I appreciate that. So let's start with that. Let's start with the exciting announcement, really hot off the press, that Lenovo and Sounds Fun made last weekend. So can you tell us about the platform that you guys launched together?
Sure. So the creative community is an incredibly important market for Lenovo, and if you look at the tension within the community around AI, it's quite profound. AI can be seen as an existential threat. It can be seen as something that, reduces what you do to soup. And even though there are a lot of people using ChatGPT and there's a lot of people making stuff within the creative community, there's still tension around it for very obvious reasons. And so the platform really started with the question, how can you make sure that AI means more creative opportunities, not less, for the average person and for the creative person as well? There's the infamous tweet, I want AI to wash my dishes and iron my laundry so I can paint and write poetry, And so it started there, and we said, okay, how can we very literally make space for these conversations around artificial intelligence and embrace the creative community? And I think a lot of technology companies have looked at a similar kind of thing and said, let's get a famous film director to make a film using AI, or let's get this music producer who's incredibly iconic and well-known to do something with AI. And that felt instinctively wrong, because the people in those spaces have been established for as long as they have, their experiences in a different medium. And our theory is that the real change makers in culture around artificial intelligence from a creative point of view will come from a community that has not done anything with it yet. It'll come from young people embracing it in different ways and figuring it out. And so if you look at the rise of hip-hop is powered by technology in a very interesting way, where it comes from scratching, it comes from sampling, it comes from a bunch of people looking at technology and what already exists, ignoring copyright on vinyl, and kind of going, what are the absolutely crazy things we can do with this that we've never been able to do before? How can we seize the creative means of production and make this our own in really interesting ways? And so we wanted to instigate that moment, and I think it was also about reminding the world that for a lot of our vision of the future, it comes from creative people. The word cyberspace was coined by Neil Stephenson, the author. When Sam Altman launches ChatGPT Voice, the first thing he tweets is the word her, which is a movie written by Spike Jonze, a creative person. And so there's so many of these different instances where creative people, fashion designers, illustrators, musicians, have created these incredible visions of the future. Why aren't they more represented? Why aren't we giving them these tools as a community and saying to them, show us what else we can do with this? And so that was the kind of instigation of it. It manifested this weekend in a partnership with Dazed Magazine. Dazed Magazine are, an incredible creative media company with a very rich history, 30 years of publishing iconic photography, articles reporting on everyone from Alexander McQueen to David Bowie to rappers I have never heard of. We partnered with them to create workshops, installations, experiences, all powered by young people, and invited them in and said, talk about what you're doing. And a whole bunch of other young people came to this experience in Bushwick, because of course it was in Bushwick. And had the space to have the conversation around AI, because a lot of the conversation around AI is the devil or AI is incredible. But maybe it's something between those two different points. Maybe if you're a creative person and all AI is good for is filling out your invoices really quickly and setting up meetings for you, that's fine. If that's what AI is to you, incredible. If you're a technologist and you want to figure out a new way to make a song, a new way to make an experience, more power to you. And so we opened it up to them. We got Nicola Formaschetti, the incredible fashion designer. If you don't know who that is, the guy who did the meat dress for Lady Gaga. That's how he was contextualized to me. But he's this incredible creative person who's done so many mind-blowing things. We worked with him to create an AI fashion line for New York Fashion Week. We worked with Yuan Sun, who's this incredible up-and-coming sculptor who works with digital pieces that kind of speak to each other. And Lenovo commissioned all these different artists, some very established, some very young and up and coming, and connected them to each other in different ways. From there, we created a series of events where We had a AI fashion runway, which you could walk along. The runway would react to what you were wearing, what you were doing. It would animate you in different ways. We made sure that Lenovo's PCs powered the entire experience, and you could go and mess with the different computers that were doing it. We made sure that there were people there explaining the technology. So if you want to throw this kind of a party, if you want to create this kind of experience, this is how you can do it. This is the software. This is the computer. And giving people those moments and those opportunities to discover for themselves, I think is really important and really powerful.
Yeah, that quite actually sounds really fun.
It was fun. I'll show you pictures.
I can't wait to see. So this whole platform was really experience-led. So can you tell us a little bit more of those why experience for this?
Sure. I think we didn't want to go mass with what we were doing. We wanted to go to a very creatively authentic, community that drive trends. And so I think the average follower count for everyone at the Dazed event was probably 30 to 50,000 people. Each person who came in there was famous to a whole bunch of people in terms of the kinds of things that they're making, in terms of the kinds of things that we do. So it was an experience for about 500 people, and being able to have them there, having them going through the different experiences, there's a specific kind of audience that can act as force multipliers in terms of what you're doing. If you can convince them that this is cool, that this is interesting, that this is worth doing, you're getting, 100, 200 other people on top of them, And so I think that was important. The other aspect of it, and I was talking to someone about it earlier on, is just giving people the chance to connect, like in a public space, to connect to each other, to have very important conversations around creativity and technology. That was really important to us. We could have done it as a series of Zoom calls, or we could have done it as some kind of, write-up on a website, but it wouldn't have been the same thing, because I think having those serendipitous moments was a really big and important part of what we were trying to do.
That's great. And I know you mentioned before that, creativity and AI can kind of be at odds at each other sometimes. So how do you create a world in which AI leads to more creativity, and how can AI really do that?
So I think the way that we look at AI has to change. We keep talking about it as a tool, but I think for creative people, it can be a substrate. It can be a medium. The same way that marble is a medium, the same way that words are a medium for writing a book. And so when you approach it like that, where you're not just trying to use it to do the same thing you've always done faster, when you look at it and you say to yourself, what is the thing that we can do today that we've never been able to do before? That's interesting. That's profound. And from that, you will get new kinds of music. You will get new kinds of poetry. You will get new kinds of film. You will get all these incredible additions to culture. And I think that that's really, really, really important, because my concern right now is I think that society tends to be like a bicycle, and we tend to go towards what we're looking at. And so we need a better vision. We need a better vision of what creativity can mean in this age of AI. It can't just be soup and doomerism or hype and snake oil, and this is how you use it. You need to give it to creative people and say, what do you want to do with it? What is the thing that you're going to make in culture with this incredible tool?
That sounds great. And you also talked a lot about young creative voices. So accessibility seems to be a really key role here. So how do you make AI accessible to those young creative voices? And how do you really democratize AI here?
So I think that there's two different answers to this question. So one, on a very practical level, we worked with Dazed to create a AI co-creation tool with them. So one of the big concerns from creative people is, how do I know the AI I'm using is organic AI or ethically sourced AI or, however you want to kind of contextualize it. So Days has 30 years of some of the world's best reporting on creative people, on their process. And we took that giant archive of 30 years and we trained an interactive tool with that. So you can go to this tool and you can say to it, how do I start a fashion label in my garage? How do I launch a record label? This is where I am with my creative project. What are the next steps? How do I get this piece of writing published? And it'll draw on that 30 years of experience, give it back to you, and cite the individual articles that it comes from, so you know exactly where the information comes from. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, I think, in terms of that question, how do you democratize access to AI? I don't think it's about access to AI, because everyone can get ChatGPT for free. Like, we can all do that. We can go and get DeepSeek. We can go and sign up for Midjourney, whatever it is. What I think it's really about is democratizing the conversation around AI in a really big way. And I think what a lot of brands are missing is they're going, here's our technology, or here's our approach to technology. This is how you should use it. This is our, this is like everyone's trying to, what is it? Make a faster horse, in the words of Henry Ford. I don't know if that's applicable, but I think that inviting creative people in, going like, what can you do with this, is a really important question to ask, and it's democratizing that conversation, I think.
Yeah, that's great, and it sounds like in all of this, you're really challenging the idea that AI is less human or less emotion. So how does the Make Space initiative also continue to challenge this idea? Let's start with that one.
So I think if you ask the question, what makes us human, which is the title of a book that I wrote, because everyone has to plug something. It's want and desire that makes us human. A computer doesn't want anything. Computer's not going to ask for a glass of water. It doesn't want to go out for dinner. It doesn't want to go for a party. It doesn't want to watch a movie. It doesn't want to sleep in. It just is. It just exists. And so the human element that you can bring to this is the desire to create something new and incredible and interesting and special. And I think I was speaking to someone about it earlier on. They were asking, how do you differentiate your brand in this age of AI where we've all got these tools? And the truth of it is, it's very difficult, because you, with your $1 million art department, have access to the same tools as a farmer somewhere. No offense to farmers. I'm sure farmers are incredible. But what will differentiate you is how you use those tools differently. Like, bring your creative lens to those tools and say, what can I do with this? How can I create an incredibly individualized experience? How can I make sure everyone at my event has something incredibly memorable? How can I weave this technology into what I'm doing in a way that's surprising and delightful and engaging? How can it help me network? How can it help me be entertained? All these different things. And I think if you bring that creative lens to what you're doing, you'll make it more human, you'll make it more authentic. And I think being able to really scale authentic emotional connection with a brand is the true promise of this technology.
Yeah, really amazing. I really love that whole human element that we're able to add to the AI here. So what advancements in AI do you think will have the greatest impact on the future of creative industries?
So we do a lot of work with agents. It's a space that we've been working in for quite a long time. We're working on 2 or 3 different projects right now, specifically focused on agents, building brand personalities. How do you actually make this really, this chatbot interesting and different and more than just something that's going to talk to you, And so we work with incredible storytellers. We work with authors. We work with, people who have backgrounds in television to go like, well, what would make this a really engaging character, from a storytelling point of view. And so we get questions about that quite a lot. We just finished a project recently where we turned people into agents. We did this time travel thing where we would interview you, take your responses, take that data set and turn you into a chatbot, a version of you, with the goal being that we would freeze you in glass, turn the data into glass, because glass doesn't biodegrade. And so there's a chance that in a million years' time, someone might find that piece of glass and have a conversation with you, or a version of you. I think that space is really fascinating, and I think a lot of other panelists have kind of pointed towards it in different ways. But I think optimizing for agents, like as much as we've done SEO optimization for years and years, I think LLM optimization, I think agent optimization is going to become a really big thing as well. And hopefully the world will be incredibly exciting and interesting and beautiful.
Incredible. So I know you mentioned that one about kind of turning, somebody else into that glass. But anything else that that you're particularly excited about coming down the pipe?
Not that I could really talk about. We're doing hopefully some.
What else are we turning into?
I'm working with MIT on a project with them called First Contact, which is about the future of writing, the future of language in the age of large language models. In the same way that when you write on a clay tablet, it changes how you write, or if you write an Instagram caption or anywhere else. So when you write with a large language model, when you read with a large language model, how does that change how we write? And so we're doing a bunch of different experiments. We're, doing crazy things there also, which I can't really talk about. As I said, some crazy stuff with Microsoft hopefully soon as well, and more to come from Lenovo as well, hopefully.
All right, great. All amazing stuff. So with that, we have a few more minutes left for Q&A. So would love to see if anyone has any questions. Yeah.
It's so exciting. You can really create we haven't seen, but how are you with infringement? Because things are going to had rights already associated with them.
So different people are having different approaches to that. So the one that I mentioned early on, where Dazed trained their model on their own content. I know Coca-Cola has done the same thing, where they have an incredible bank of assets that they've generated since 1886 that they use to power a lot of their AI projects. I think it's an ongoing debate, and I think that we need to be very careful not to kind of put our heads in the sand and ignore it. And a lot of the point of this is to kind of have the conversation, like what is ethical, what is beneficial, what is additive to culture. So yes, it's tricky, and every time we do any project, we walk into a room full of lawyers, and I do my best to pay attention.
Yeah, you had a question right up here.
Speaking of ethics, not everybody can afford to have all these tools. What is being done about preventing a sort of digital divide? Like, in the early days of the internet, there was a concern that some people would be left behind because they didn't have fast internet and they lived in rural areas. What can be done to prevent the creation of a sort of digital underclass as AI becomes more prevalent?
I think that's an incredibly important question. So, coming from Africa, working with telcos, banks, in that space, innovation looks very different to what it looks like, here in North America. And so those are still incredibly innovative spaces. Africa invented mobile banking. They had mobile banking before any other country because people did not have fixed addresses. They worked out how to send airtime to each other from working in a mine to a village somewhere else. It's profound, the kind of innovation that comes from those spaces. And it's a space where I'm particularly concerned about the digital divide. I'm kind of almost less concerned when it comes to AI in a strange sense, because if you look at the multiple different revolutions, you have the computer revolution, which is the first, kind of big thing happening there. And for that, you need access to a computer, which is expensive, and you need electricity, and it's prohibitive. Then from there, you need internet access, which is the next revolution. So internet access is a little bit easier to get. You have far better cell phone coverage in South Africa than you do here, as far as I'm concerned. When it comes to things like AI, they are pretty democratic. As things stand right now, you can get ChatGPT on WhatsApp, which is the #1 messaging platform in the rest of the world. So you can engage with ChatGPT and go, help me with my homework, teach me how to start this kind of a shop, help me learn how to, dress a wound, whatever it is. So there is that access that is being built in, and beyond the very advanced frontier models like O1 Pro, Deep Research, which are $200 a month or something crazy like that, a lot of the rest of the stuff is very accessible. You can go onto 11 Labs and, create your own voice. You can go onto Pseudo and make your own AI song. And you don't even need to give them a credit card. So there is access, and I think that you're going to see a different kind of creativity from different parts of the world. My greatest hope is that this helps end the digital divide, where education specifically gets profoundly affected by this. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much. Incredible chat, and enjoy the rest of the session.
Thank you.